You know, it's a strange paradox when you actually stop and look at a modern church directory.
It really is.
You walk into a lobby or, you scroll through a Meet the Team page online, and the titles are so consistent. You have pastors, maybe an associate pastor, a board of elders.
Deacons, bishops, in some traditions. It's very structured.
Exactly. It's familiar. It feels
Mm-hmm.
corporate almost. But, and here's the mystery we're looking at today. If you open the New Testament, the parts describing how the early church was actually built, the number one most prominent title isn't pastor. It isn't bishop. It is apostle.
Peter, Paul,
Yeah.
John, the heavy hitters.
Right. They were the celebrities of the early movement. But today,
Yeah.
that title has, it's effectively vanished from the mainstream. It's like the CEO position just disappeared from the org chart. And you just have to ask, why?
It's the elephant in the room of ecclesiology, which is just a fancy word for the study of the church. Did the job description expire? Did God retire the position? Or, and this is the darker possibility our source brings up, did we just stop hiring for it?
That is exactly what we're digging into. We're doing a deep dive into a doctrinal treatise called The Apostle, The Missing Gift Restored by Reverend John Shane Vaughn. And I want to be clear right off the bat, this isn't just a nostalgic look at history. This text makes a pretty aggressive claim.
A very aggressive claim.
That the disappearance of the apostle wasn't a divine decision, it was a human error.
A human error with massive consequences. Vaughn's argument is that by losing this specific role, the church didn't just lose a cool title, it lost its foundational architecture. We're not just missing a label, we're missing an entire function.
So our mission today is to unpack that claim. We're going to look at the theology. Does the Bible actually say apostles were temporary? We'll look at the history. How did Catholics and Protestants, who agree on almost nothing, somehow agree to bury this title? And finally, what would it even look like if this role were restored?
To even start, you have to understand the theological battleground. There are two main camps on this: cessationism and continuationism.
Okay, let's define those quickly. These are the big technical terms for today.
Right. Cessationism is the belief that the sign gifts, so miracles, speaking in tongues, and specifically the office of the apostle, they ceased. They stopped. The idea is they were needed to launch the rocket, but once the church was in orbit and we had the Bible, the booster rockets fell away.
And continuationism is the view that, nope, the rocket is still flying and we still need all the boosters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this source material is unapologetically continuationist. But it doesn't just argue from emotion, it argues from a timeline. The author points us straight to Ephesians chapter 4, verses 8 through 11. This is what the text calls the ascension gift argument.
I found this part fascinating. It's like a logic puzzle. It's all about a specific sequence of events. The text quotes the verse. When he ascended up on high, he gave gifts unto men.
And the timing is critical there, when he ascended.
So let's walk through this. Jesus dies, resurrects, and then goes to heaven. Then he gives the gifts.
Correct. Now think about the original 12. Peter, James, John, all of them. They were already called apostles while Jesus was walking on earth. They had the title.
Okay, I'm with you. They already had the job.
So here is the logic puzzle from the source. If the gift of apostle was only for those original 12 men, why would Jesus, after he leaves, list apostles as a brand new gift to the church?
It's redundant. It's like giving someone a toaster for their wedding when they already own that exact one.
Precisely. If the office died with the 12, there's no reason to reissue the gift from heaven. The fact that Ephesians lists it as a post-ascension gift implies it was for the future church, the body that would exist after Jesus was gone.
And to really drive this home, the source brings up the ultimate outlier, the guy who kind of ruins every cessationist argument, Paul.
Paul is the problem child for that whole theory. Think about the standard definition people use to close the office. An apostle must be someone who walked with Jesus during his earthly ministry.
The eyewitness rule. But Paul, he never met the earthly Jesus.
Nope. While Jesus was preaching, Paul or Saul was probably studying, getting ready to hunt down Christians. He showed up late. He even calls himself one born out of due time.
So if the rule is you must have seen Jesus in the flesh, Paul's disqualified.
Completely. Yet nobody denies he was an apostle. He wrote half the New Testament. He's the prototypical apostle. So the source argues Paul is irrefutable proof that the window didn't close with the original 12. If Paul can be an apostle, then the qualifications must be spiritual, not just historical.
That makes sense. But let me play devil's advocate. Is there a time limit? Maybe the window stayed open for Paul and then it's slammed shut.
A great question, and the source anticipates it. It points to what it calls the duration clause in that same Ephesians passage. It says these gifts, apostles, prophets, all of them, are given until something happens.
Right, it says, until we all come in the unity of the faith unto a perfect man.
So the simple question is, have we reached that? Is the church currently in total absolute unity? Is it perfect?
I think a quick look at any comment section online or the 45,000 denominations would be a resounding no.
That's the point. The logic is functional. You don't throw away the hammer and saw when the house is half built. If the goal, unity and perfection, hasn't been met, then the tools given to reach that goal must still be necessary.
That's a strong argument. But it brings us back to that directory problem. If the logic holds up, why did the title vanish? We see bishops everywhere. Why did bishop survive and apostle didn't?
And this is where the source does some really interesting linguistic detective work. It pits two Greek words against each other, apostolos and episkopos.
Okay, let's break those down.
Yeah.
This part really clarified the roles for me.
Apostle literally means a sent one, but contextually it's more like a foundation layer. It's a governmental, even a military term. You send an apostle to a new territory to establish the culture of the kingdom. It's a pioneering gift.
So they're the ones breaking new ground.
Exactly. Now contrast that with episkopos. That's the word we translate as bishop. It literally means overseer, a manager. A bishop manages what's already there. An apostle creates what isn't. The source uses this great construction metaphor, scaffold versus foundation.
And the scaffold view is the common one, right? That apostles were just temporary.
That's the cessationist view. Thanks for the help, we'll take it from here. But the source points to Ephesians 2:20, which says, the church is built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets.
And you never remove a foundation. Not if you want the building to stand.
Never. You remove the foundation, the whole thing collapses. The argument is that the church has been trying to add new floors to a building while claiming the foundation is gone. And maybe that explains why things feel unstable.
That clarifies the function. But the source also talked about how you get the job. The difference between a career choice and a divine calling.
Yes, this is so crucial. In 1 Timothy 3, it says, if a man desire the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work. It's framed as something you can aspire to. And there's a list of qualifications.
It reads like a job description. Must be sober, must have good behavior.
It basically is. It's a noble task, but one you can seek out. But you never, ever see that language for an apostle. You don't apply to be an apostle.
You don't send in a resume.
No. Paul says in Galatians he's an apostle, not of men, neither by man, but by Jesus Christ. You are arrested by it. You are summoned.
So a bishop is selected by people based on qualifications. An apostle is selected by God whether people like it or not.
Which makes the apostle very dangerous to an institution. And that leads us right into this historical cover-up.
The whodunit part. The source blames two groups for burying the apostle. First, the Catholic Church, and then, ironically, the Protestants.
It's such a strange alliance. So let's start with the Catholics. As the church centralized power in Rome, they established the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, as the supreme authority.
But if you have living apostles still wandering around,
you've got a problem. By biblical definition, an apostle outranks a bishop. One lays foundations, the other manages. If you want the Pope to be supreme, you can't have these other figures running around with equal or greater authority.
So they had to get rid of the competition, doctrinally.
Precisely. They invented the doctrine of apostolic succession, the idea that the authority of the original apostles wasn't passed on to new apostles, but was inherited by the bishops. That neatly closed the door. The office was absorbed.
Okay, that serves the Catholic power structure. But then the Reformation happens. The Protestants break away. They questioned everything else. Why didn't they bring the apostle back?
Because of something the source calls polemic necessity. They had to win an argument.
The nuclear option.
Exactly. Think about it. The Catholic Church was claiming authority through miracles, relics, supernatural signs. The Protestants needed to delegitimize the Pope, but they couldn't just say, well, we have miracles too, because frankly, they weren't seeing as many at the time.
So they went the other way entirely.
They went scorched earth. They argued that all miracles and supernatural offices died with the original 12. See, if the age of miracles is over, then Catholic miracles must be fake.
So to prove the Pope was a fraud, they had to argue God just stopped doing supernatural things.
It was a strategic move, but in doing so, they stripped the Protestant church of its power. The source says they threw the apostolic baby out with the bathwater.
And there's a specific name attached to this, a theologian named Benjamin Warfield.
B.B. Warfield. He's the intellectual giant of cessationism. Writing in 1918, he really systemized this. His argument was that miracles were just credentials, like a badge an apostle showed to prove he wrote scripture. Once the Bible was done, you didn't need the badge.
But our source has some major problems with Warfield's logic.
It takes it apart piece by piece. First, miracles weren't just ID cards. Scripture says they were for the profit of all. It was about compassion, not just authentication. And second, the Bible is full of non-apostles doing miracles. Ananias, Stephen, Philip. They weren't apostles, yet they performed signs and wonders. So Warfield's whole argument, miracles equal apostles, and apostles are gone, so miracles are gone, it just doesn't hold up scripturally.
So we have this history of suppression. But the source doesn't just want to bring back a title. It proposes a completely different way of seeing leadership. It introduces the fivefold ministry as a ladder of maturity.
This was maybe the most practical insight for me. We often treat prophet, pastor, teacher like they're just different departments. You're in HR, I'm in accounting.
But the source says there's stages of growth.
Yes, a progression. You don't just jump to the top. It says you start as an evangelist. That's entry level, bringing people in, sharing the good news.
Then what?
Then you mature into a teacher. People are in the door. Now you have to ground them. Explain the what and the why. Give them roots.
Next up is pastor.
The shepherd. This is where you learn to care for hearts. You nurture the flock. It's relational. You can't govern people you don't love.
Then prophet.
Now you're tuning into God's voice. It's about revelation, direction, hearing what isn't being said.
And at the very top of this ladder is the apostle.
Right. The source sees the apostle as the culmination of all those levels. A true apostle has a pastor's heart, a teacher's mind, an evangelist's fire, and a prophet's ear. It's the level of spiritual government.
That really changes the resume, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You don't just graduate seminary and someone hands you the title apostle.
Not at all. It implies true apostleship is rare because it requires that depth of character. It's not a title you grab, it's a capacity you grow into.
But here's the catch. Even if these people exist, the source says it doesn't matter unless the church recognizes them. This is the doctrine of reception.
Yes, quoting Matthew 10.41. He that receiveth a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward.
Unpack that a bit. What's the reward?
The principle is that your perception defines your reception. If an apostle walks into your church, but you only see him as a good speaker, you'll only get a good speech. You limit the gift by your label.
So if you don't recognize the authority, you don't get the benefit that authority brings.
Exactly. You see them as a peer, you get a conversation, you see them as a sent one from God, you get impartation. It puts the responsibility on the listener.
Okay, that sounds great, but I have to be the skeptic again. The term apostle has been so abused. We've all seen people on TV calling themselves chief apostle. How do you tell a real one from a narcissist?
The source is very clear on this. It points to the biblical proofs in 2 Corinthians 12. And the very first proof isn't power or charisma.
It's patience.
Patience, endurance. The source talks about scar tissue. Paul didn't defend his apostleship with his follower count. He listed his sufferings. Shipwrecks, beatings, betrayals.
A pretty stark contrast to the celebrity culture we sometimes see.
It really is. The mark of a foundational leader is that they can bear weight. That leaves scars. If there's no scar tissue, the source suggests you should be very, very skeptical.
The text also says these figures are often rejected because they disturb structure.
That's the nature of the gift. A pastor might disturb your comfort. But an apostle disturbs the arrangement of the church. They come to set things in order. They challenge how decisions are made.
Institutions hate that.
Institutions love predictability. Apostles bring divine disruption. They shift the church from being a democracy where we all vote to a theocracy, where we submit to a calling. That's always going to cause friction.
So zooming out, what's the ultimate argument here? Why does this matter so much?
It's about power and life. The bottom line of the treatise is that a missing gift was never taken by God. It was abandoned by men. And the author believes the church is, well, anemic because of it. We're trying to function as a living organism using the rules of a corporation.
Like trying to fight a war with a committee instead of a general.
That's a perfect analogy. The source ends with a challenge. If the church wants to see the fullness and unity from Ephesians, it can't get there with just pastors and teachers. It has to restore the foundation.
It really does force you to check your assumptions. Whether you agree with the theology or not, that distinction between a leader, elected by men, and one called by God is fundamental.
It really raises the question, are we running the church the way we want or the way the architect designed it? And if we're not using the blueprint, can we really be surprised if the building isn't as strong as it could be?
That's a huge question to end on. Wow. We've gone from ancient Greek to 20th century debates to the scar tissue of leadership. I will definitely never look at a church directory the same way again.
It changes the lens, for sure. You start looking for the foundation, not just the paint on the walls.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today.
It was a pleasure.
And to you listening, thanks for being here. We'll catch you on the next one.